Welcome to Next Level Conversations, where we are equipping women with actionable tools that they can implement in their life. I am Shawntekinney, your host, and I am so glad that you guys are joining us for episode 3. We are still working, trying to get things together. So you guys just hang out with us as we take this journey together because trust, this is a journey. So, for those of you who are just now joining us, I created Next Level so that we could provide women with actionable tools that they can implement. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to be sharing real life stories of women who have successfully managed chaotic situations. And our hope and our prayer is that you are inspired, that you are encouraged, and that you feel supported as you go through your journey and you find balance in your chaos. So, for the last few weeks, we have been talking about stepping out of the chaos, and we've been talking about some pillars. We've been talking about how to master your situation. And we've been basing it, we've been laying the 4 foundations. Week 1, we talked about awareness and how to become aware. And we asked ourselves 2 questions. 1, where are you? And 2, where do you want to go? Because getting a vision for what you want your life to look like is extremely important. And so we asked you these questions. Where are you? Meaning, where are you today? And where do you want to go in life? Becoming aware. The second pillar that we talked about on last week was being intentional. And to once you figure out where it is that you want to go, you have to take intentional steps to get there. You have to set your mind, set your intention. So last week we talked about, as we were teaching you how to be intentional, we talked about being aware, asking yourself, doing a daily check-in. Where am I on today? Where am I in my emotions? Where am I in my relationships? Where am I in my goals? Controlling your environment, being mindful of the people that you interact with, the ways you eat, the way, what I call digest, and who's speaking into you. The third step in being intentional, we talked about staying focused on the goal, remembering what your goal is, your why, because your why is very important. And while you're setting your intentions, you are going to have to remember your why because life is going to happen. And the fourth being um, staying in your lane, asking yourself, am I acting like, am I talking like a healed me, a transformed me? Am I moving like that me? And so stand in your lane. And tonight we're going to tackle the fourth pillar, which is one of my favorites, consistency. What is consistency? And there are a lot of different definitions for consistency, but when I think about consistency, it's basically, for me, doing what it is that you said you were going to do, showing up where it is that you said you were going to show up, being intentional, and being in the place, and not just doing it one day, not just doing it one time, but consistently. It's showing up every day. Because understand, you are moving, you're on a journey, and you're transforming, and this is something that you have to do every single day. So how do you transform on a daily basis and still live life? Because understand, as we talked about last week, just because you are in this place where you jolly happy and you're ready to transform your life doesn't mean that everybody else is right there with you, or that all the things that you've been going through, or all the things that other people are going through, or that life period is going to stop. And so you have to be consistent. And how do we become consistent? Well, I got some good news and I have some bad news. Because everybody always tells me, and I even told myself this when I started this journey. One of the things that I said was that I didn't know how to be consistent. I as I talked about myself, I always said that I wasn't a finisher. And so when I started my journey in 2016, one of my prayers was to become a finisher. And as I was studying, and as I was just, just figuring out some things, I realized I actually am a finisher because I'm already consistent. And that's where the good news comes in. You are already consistent. The bad news is you are consistent. Here's the thing, where you are in life today is because of your consistency, the good place or the bad place. So if your life is in a state of chaos, it's because you were faithful to the bad habits, the bad actions, the negative thoughts, the negative emotions that got you here. You already know how to be consistent. It's already in you. What we want to do is we want to become intentionally consistent. We want to put our we want to set our consistency, and we want to put it towards the things that we want to, that are going to help us get to where we want to go. So y'all know I love a story, and I've been telling you guys about my journey. And you know that in 2015 I walked out of 2015 and walked into 2016, and I had decided that I wanted to be healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I begin to do a lot of things, right? And tonight I'm going to focus on the physical part of my journey. Before I walked into 2016, from about 2010 to 2015, let me step back. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm 45 years old. I know I look good, but from the time I graduated from high school in 1996 up until about 2000, and I'm going to say probably about 2005, I was a tiny something. It was easy for me. Weight was easy, but I began to gain weight. And by 2008, I realized, okay, Shawnte, you've put on a little bit of weight. And so now it's time for us to lose some weight. 2008, it was nothing. I hadn't even hit 30 yet. I went ahead, I got on Weight Watchers, and I dropped those pounds so fast. But what I did not do, I didn't change any of my habits. I didn't change any of my thought processes. I didn't change any of the things in my environment. So I lost all of that weight in 2008. By 2010, I had put it all back on. And somewhere along the way, after 2010, I remember I went to a a Blue Man Group concert, and I saw a picture of myself in 2010, and I looked like I was 8 months pregnant, and it sent me into a straight depression. And for a few years, I was like just kind of wondering in life, but at the same time, I wanted to get out of where I was, but I didn't know how to do it. By 2013, I had begun to start exercising. So 2013 to 2015, I was exercising. But I could never keep it going. I could never stay consistent. So I would start exercising, I would start running, and never fail, something happened. Every single time I would start my run, right? My body would it would be like ants, and you guys can probably relate. It would be like ants, and fire was just rushing all over my body. It was horrible. I mean, it would burn. I would run, and I would be itching, and I would be scratching all over myself. By the time I finished, I would have whips everywhere, and I would tell myself, you know what, Shawnte, this happens every time that you stop working out and then you start back up. So if you just keep going, you will be fine. You will make it past the burn. But it never failed. When that first day I started back, I would walk, run, just so I can ease the burn, right? And then when I finally made it past the burn and I'm doing good, I would be working out for a couple of months, completely forgot about the torture of starting. I would just be doing good. And I'm like, I'm in it. I'm in this thing, but never fails. I would stop. I would stop because I would go for a few months and I didn't see any results and life got in the way. So I would stop my workout and then I would start it back up again and I would have to go through the burn again. And I would promise myself, I'm not doing this no more. And I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep at it. Never fails. I forget. I must have forgot. I must have enjoyed that burning because every single time I continue to do the exact same thing. And one of the things that I have realized is anything that you're not changing, you're enjoying. That's not a good, I don't like that. Okay. I do not like that reality. But 2016 comes and I'm like, okay, this is it. This is it. I am serious. I am going to change because it was a desperate, I was in a desperate place. At this point, I had completely ran out of what I call road. I had ran out of road. I couldn't do anything else on my own. So I had no other choice but to change, to make a change in my life. And so my whole mindset had shifted because I wanted results. I had become aware. I realized where I was and I figured out where I wanted to go. I became intentional. I began to control my environment and figure out the things that I needed to do. But now I needed to learn how to be consistent. So what did I do? I became intentionally consistent. I was no longer on what I call automation, just seeing what happens. I became intentionally consistent. And there are a few things that I did, and I want to share them with you. And you don't have to do them in this order, but I'm just going to tell you what it is that I did so that to help you become intentionally consistent. And the first thing that I did was I made a list, right? I made a list about where I was not being consistent in my life. The places where I wanted to go, but I was struggling with. And I wrote it down on this list and I was honest. It was an honest assessment. And mind you, for those of you who are just joining us, during this time period, I was studying the character of God. And one of the things about God and about the people that God loved, they were consistent people and they were honest with themselves. And so God's character was consistent. So I knew I had to be consistent. So I made this list about all the places in my life where I had been starting, stopping, starting, stopping, starting, stopping. Don't judge me. It was a long list. And exercise was one of the things on my list. Weight loss was one of the things on my list, and getting healthy was one of the things on my list. And so when I made this list, I began to ask myself, Shawnte, why is it that you can't stick with this, or because you can't stick with it, why is it that you do not want to? What are your feelings towards this thing? What is it that's blocking you and that's keeping you from getting up and going into the gym every single day and losing the weight and getting control of your eating? What's blocking you? And so I made that list and I just wrote it down. I just wrote it down and I still have that list today. And there are places in my life where I add to that list when I begin to look at and say, okay, you're procrastinating and you're not being consistent. What is it that's blocking you? Is this something that you want to do? And what's your emotions behind it? From there, from there, I started. Once I figured out what it was that I made the list and I figured out what it was that was, and I was honest with myself, what's blocking me from exercising? And the truth was nothing but me. Again, another hard reality. I really didn't like these realities at the time, but a hard truth that I had to face. What's blocking me? And so what I realized is I can sit here and I can wait for every perfect opportunity. I could wait for the perfect day. I could wait for the perfect moment. I can wait for the perfect weather. I could wait for the perfect man. I could wait for the perfect house. I could wait for the perfect body. I could wait for the perfect finances, everything. None of that is going to make a difference. Once you decide, you have to start because you can't get anywhere if you do not start. Neville Goddard, one of my favorite writers, has a saying, don't delay occupancy. Do not delay in getting started because you can't get to where you want to go unless you do something. So you have to start. And so I started something and I started getting up and going to the gym. I set a date, I set a time, I set a number of days, and I just started. And the third thing that I did was I became accountable to consistency. Now, And I'm not going to suggest this for anybody else. This was my journey, and I'm just telling y'all how my journey worked. I knew enough about myself to know that if I don't make it a part of my life, then I'm not going to continue to do it. And at this particular time, I'm studying the character of God, and I'm studying all of the people that God loves and that God moves in their life. And I'm studying how they move and how they think and how they act. And they showed up every day. That was something that was very hard for me. They showed up in the places that they said they were going to show up in, how they said they were going to show up intentionally every day. Now, there were a lot of places in my life where I showed up with no problem. I showed up for other people. I showed up at work. So I knew that I could be consistent. I was consistently at work. I showed up at church. I was consistently at church. I showed up in certain emotions. I showed up in hurts. I showed up in habits. So I knew that I had it in me. It was just now I have to start showing up for myself because I was showing up in places that were not serving me for people that I loved, it was benefiting them, but I wasn't showing up for myself. And what I wanted was to consistently be present for myself. So what I did as part of my workout routine. Now, mind you, I'm working on mind, body, spirit, everything at this time. But we're talking about how I developed my workout and how I went from a very unhealthy and overweight individual to the beauty that you guys see sitting right here before you today. And so what I did was in 2016, I set a time. I set a time. I had begun to get up early so that I could spend more time with God in the Word, and so that I could stretch my day out. And so after I finished studying the Word of God and meditating, I went to the gym. I went to the gym. Some days, and I'm not don't talk about me. Some days I just put on my clothes, went to the gym, touched the treadmill, and went back home. That was all I had in me. But I still showed up. Some days I didn't make it to the gym, but I walked or I did a workout at home. What my goal was for an entire year without attaching any results to it was to up, show up for myself and be committed and be a woman of my word to myself. Because what I realized was consistency was actually my best friend. Consistency has always been there for me, and consistency actually loves me and it served me. And so I had to stop seeing consistency as an enemy and begin to embrace consistency as a friend. And sometimes, especially when we're doing workout regimens, we're looking for other people to help make us accountable. What God was reminding me, and what I realized in studying the character of all the people of God and all the people that he loved, which he loves all of us, but how he used different people in the Bible, they were accountable to themselves. They didn't look to other people to be accountable. So they had to find that accountability within themselves. And I wanted that. I wanted to be accountable. So I look like consistency sitting right here next to me. Don't think I'm crazy. But consistency had to become my friend. And we became really good buddies. And when I wanted to lay in and not do anything, I would remember consistency has always been here for me. So I have to be accountable to him the way he is accountable to me. And so we joined in together as partners. We created a partnership, a relationship so that we could help one another. And consistency was my accountability partner because as I went on through my journey, a lot of people were there and they ended up not always being there. And so I learned during this time how to be accountable to me and accountable, and I used consistency to teach me that. After that, after we got started and I started becoming accountable, I had to do something that was very, very, very hard. And I know y'all saying getting up in the morning is hard enough. That wasn't the hard part. I had to take a line out of Usher's book and I had to let it burn. I did. I had to let it burn in so many places in my life. So many places in my life, but especially during my fitness. Understand when you're changing, when you're transforming, when you're moving, it's not going to be comfortable. It is not going to be comfortable. When you're getting out of a toxic relationship, it's not going to be comfortable. When I was saying no to a food that I absolutely love, that my body just craved, it was not comfortable. When I was having to delay gratification in spending and different things like that, it was not comfortable. But what I would tell myself is this burn is temporary. This burn is temporary, Shawnte, but where it is that you're going is is everlasting. It's going to benefit you. So let it burn. Go through this hard spot because the hard is not going to always be here. That's what I had to remind myself consistently. And I learned that from the way them ants used to just crawl through my body when I was sitting up there, when I was sitting and I was working out. This burn is only temporary. So you got to get to a point where you let it burn. If you're, you don't want to feel, we never want to feel the pain, right? We don't ever want to feel the pain, but the pain isn't going to last. There's another side. There is another point. There is another place. And if you can focus on that, you can make it past the burn. You can make it past the hard place to what I call the city of peace, because you begin to see so many things and it's hard at the beginning. It is, I'm not going to play. It's hard, but you got to go through the hard in order to get to the good stuff. So let it burn. And part of this is it takes you through the start stop process, because we love starting and then we stop. But if you let it burn, you go all the way through and you no longer have to run through the start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. Because that constant starting, stopping, it takes all of your energy. It requires energy that you can be putting on being better, but you have to motivate yourself to get back up. You have to talk yourself into it, because you begin to feel like a failure when you go for so long and then you fall off. You like, man, I can't do it. And so you have to go get all of that energy and all of that momentum. And God, God, because I was starting and stopping y'all at one point in my life so much. And as I continued to go on through, I remember it got to a point where it was like God was like, okay, finally, we're at a point where we can do something. And I was like, Lord, we've been going for a long time. What you mean we're finally at a starting point? He's like, you're finally at a point where you stopped stopping and you were ready to go. So I encourage you, stop, to cultivate the habit of stopping the start stop by letting it burn. And then I go to take you to step number 5. I think we've gone through 4 steps. Now I take you to step number 5. Take one step at a time, right? The only thing that I could do was focus on the step in front of me. Focus on the step in front of me. The only thing that matters is the now, the step that you are in right now. I mean, I knew big picture where I wanted to go, but I couldn't put my eyes on that because it was too big. Like I had too much weight to lose, and I carried my weight in such a way that it was not obvious to people how big I actually was. It was obvious to me. I didn't like the way that I looked. I didn't like the way that I felt. And this is not just physical weight. I carried emotional weight. I carried spiritual weight. I carried mental weight, all different things. And when you think about the gravity of how big, you think, oh Lord, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on me. It don't even matter. Just focus on the step in front of you. Focus on just the thing in front of you. And God would tell me every day, Shawnte, just be present in this moment. Just be present in just this moment. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just be present right here and let's focus on this thing that you need to do. And that is exactly what we did, which got me to the step number 6. I set a reasonable timeline. I set a reasonable timeline to get me to my goal. So in 2016, I was almost 40. I didn't turn 40 into 2018. So what I did was I started my journey in 16 and I gave myself to 2018 such that I did not put unnecessary stress on myself. Because losing the weight, being consistent, being aware, being intentional every single day, showing up every day was already enough. Now I got this crazy deadline where I got to lose 40 pounds in 10 days or, 100 pounds in the next 30 days. It was just not working. So I gave myself plenty of time. And I did all of this, you guys, all of this first part of it, I did it all in consultation with God. I did every ounce of it in consultation with God, allowing Him to lead me and guide me where He wanted me to go and how He wanted me to move. And then eventually in 2017, I was ready to go to that next level. So I hired a trainer and we continued the journey. But I set a reasonable deadline for myself, not something that was not realistic and unachievable, but I set something that I could actually do. And that took a lot of pressure off of me. So as you are working to be consistent, set a reasonable deadline for yourself. Don't set something that's going to stress you out. Do not set anything that's going to stress you out. And then that takes us to the final step, step 7, trust the process. Trust the process. Okay. What God would tell me starting in 2016, and I was on a roller coaster. There was so many things going on. I told you guys last week how when I started my journey, my husband came in and he just decided, you know what? I want a divorce. So I got emotional stuff going on. I'm dealing with spiritual aspects of myself. I'm dealing with the physical parts, the whole 9 yards. But what God told me every single day is trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Shawnte, it's working for you. It's working for you. And so that's what I had to do. And that's all my trainer would tell me. Shawnte, trust the process. Whatever steps, whatever plan you've laid out, and wherever God is taking you, you have to trust that it's working. And God would say, Shawnte, it's working for you. It's working for you. Even when it was dark and I'll be laying out on the floor crying, it's working for you. It's working for you. So just continue to trust, continue to trust, continue to trust. Trust the process. Give the process the respect of patience. Give yourself the respect of patience because it's working for you. It's working for you. And the way that you do that is what we're going to be talking about on next week, mindfulness. That's the reason why we have got to be mindful. And as we wrap up tonight, we're going to get to a point where I'm going to start taking some questions from you guys. And tonight I got a couple of questions for y'all since y'all like to ask me so many questions. But we are going to take a few questions, and I hope all of you guys stick around for this part because this is an opportunity for you to interact back with me. But I want to remind you of our 7 steps, and I'm gonna see if I can get them all in order. First, step 1, make a list of all the places in your life where you haven't been consistent, where you desire consistency. Step 2, start. I don't care what the step is. I don't care what it is that you do something. You cannot go where you need to go if you do not start. Step 3, I don't know what it was. Step 3, step 3, what was it? Step 3, I become accountable to consistency. Make consistency your friend. Make it your friend. Make it your friend. Begin to talk to consistency because he makes you accountable and it's you being accountable to yourself. Step 4, let it burn. You're going to feel discomfort. You're going to be uncomfortable. No matter what it is, you're going to be uncomfortable. Let it burn. Step 5, take it one step at a time. Just focus on the thing right in front of you, and that's it. Step 6, what was it? Oh, set a reasonable deadline. Y'all, I got these things in my head. I just don't do good with these lists. Set a reasonable deadline. And step 7, trust the process. it's working for you. And as we wrap up just this first part, I want to remind you guys that you can connect with us at www.nexlevel.org. I want to encourage you to get issue 2 of Next Level magazine. It has additional steps in there, so many stories of how to get out of, how to step out of chaos, and some different tools that you can use to take your life from where you are to where you want to go. So make sure you download the app. You can connect with us at www.nexlevel.org. You can connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and please follow us at Next Level Magazine and catch our podcast on YouTube, Next Level Magazine. Everything is Next Level Magazine. So as we